All right, guys. Had somebody ask me about winterizing this generator after my last video, so I thought I'd run through a couple steps. It's pretty simple to do on these types of generators. We have a side case that we'll get to in a minute, but in the meantime, there is still fuel inside of it, so we want to try and get rid of that first, because that's going to be your heaviest or your most volume. I like to use a big wide filter. This one in particular, I don't know if we can see that, has a filter in the bottom, a little screen. We use that for just kind of filtering out if there's any dirt trapped, anything like that. So kind of put that right there. These generators are pretty light, but if you have trouble lifting it, you may need some assistance from somebody. There is a small float in there that is crooked right now. There we go. And so you just kind of tip it until you get that fuel out of there. Of course, you want to be sure and clean up any spilt fuel that gets on. Okay, and don't worry too much about getting fuel down the front. Part of the winterizing we'll do is get some soapy water and just kind of give this thing a quick run down there. Now once we've got the fuel out of it, give it a little cleanup, you just want to kind of see if it'll start. It won't because the amount of fuel is gone, but give it a couple of pumps just to cycle the cylinder and the pump inside. So I'll just give it a couple. That should do it. Now we'll go over and we'll talk about emptying the float. All right, guys, so here what we got the generator up on some boards just to kind of elevate it so that we have a tray down here to catch fuel. You can use anything. This is a parts catcher that I have. Should work perfectly for that. So what we need to do is, after the fuel's drained out, you can take the spark plug access panel off. Give these guys so they're nice and loose, and then you can kind of reach back in here and start pulling that. It's held on by 4 pressure clips, and so you need to definitely give it a little bit of a pull. It's going to feel like it's bending, but you're okay. So what we got here is we got the air cleaner, and then we got a little hose in here that runs into the float valves. Just kind of pull that out. Let's pull that air cleaner off too. Just so you can see, mine's already been cleaned. So part of the winterizing that you can do is pull that out and then use warm soapy water. We'll clean that out, and you can kind of clean inside if you see any kind of dirt in there. But other than that, we just kind of position your catch valve right there, your catch tray I should say, and you just turn this screw and you'll give it a little time, and what it's doing is emptying the float valve out of that carburetor, or the float out of the carburetor, so that we're not housing any fuel inside that to get gunked in there. While that's doing it, one alternate you can do is, if you're only going to store it for a couple months, you can add like a fuel stabilizer. You don't necessarily need to empty fuel into Mine's going to be in more long-term storage in some colder areas, so I decided to actually empty the fuel tank itself. But it's not 100% needed. I mean, especially if it's completely full, you can get something similar to Stable or one of those tri-fuels. Anything at the store will kind of give you an idea. Anyway, so once that's good and empty, kind of give that. And like I said, you know, your catches don't need to have, I mean, this is, you know, maybe a ½ an ounce or a ¼ ounce. Anyway, so you just tighten that valve back up, and then just make sure that fuel, once you've cleaned your filter, air dried it, you can put that back in there. Like that. Get our cover back on. The other thing in winterizing these, you want to change the oil out. I did that prior to making this video. Didn't think about it as far as the video goes, but again, pretty straightforward. You got your oil fill, and then there's a drain, or I'm sorry, pull that, tip it, that'll drain out. Again, if you have problems, check out the manual on it. It's pretty self-explanatory. And there you go. The other thing that you can do is to actually pull the spark plug. I'll show you where we got that guy in there. If you look down inside here, you got your spark plug right here. You can pop that off, pull the spark plug out, add a couple drops of like Marvel mystery oil, something like that in there, and then give your generator a good couple pulls, and it's called flogging. What it does is it lubricates the cylinder wall, and just basically prevents corrosion if you're going to be doing any long-term storage. Especially real important if you're doing it in areas where you have like a high moisture content and your temperatures are changing, because it'll develop condensation from the frequent, or you know, from the temperature changes themselves. So that's important to do also. The kit did come, or when you bought your generator, it did come with that kind of a little hokey spark plug puller, but you can get into it with just a standard ratchet. Also a good time to check your spark plug, clean it, and see if there's you know, any fouling or anything like that, to help it kind of run better the next year. So other than that, it's basically reverse, put the cover back on, pop those in, and then put your spark plug cover back on, and that's pretty much it. Pretty self-explanatory, but I did have a couple people ask, so I thought I'd throw it out there. Thanks, guys.